Hello, friend. This is Legal Design Thinking in Real Life, and I'm your host, Hannele Korhonen. This live series is brought to you by Lawyers Design School, that is a learning hub for lawyers and legal teams to adopt the skills and mindset of legal design. And I must say, I'm really excited about today's guest, Angélica Flechas. I knew her even before, but then I saw her live in Legal Design Summit about a month ago, and she had me the moment she explained how the world is designed for men and that the men are default and women are an exception, and that we need to we need to have more diversity and more voices to actually design a world that is better for all of us. Today we will talk about legal service design and how it can transform the experience in law. Angélica is a lawyer and a designer and works in her own service design agency, HÁPTICA. Hello, Angélica, welcome.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you and where are you today? Where are you joining us from?
I'm really well. I am from Colombia and I am right now in Colombia in my own apartment. So happy to be here today.
So happy to have you here. And anyone watching this live, please join the discussion with your questions and comments. You can type them in the chat. But let's get started with you, Angélica. Can you tell us who you are? Give a brief presentation and tell us about your story.
Of course. Well, I am a woman. I am from Colombia. I am a lawyer and I'm also a designer. I did both back at school. And I also have an MBA program. And I am the founder of HÁPTICA, which is a service design agency. I did that because I really wanted to design services, but in Colombia was really new that when I decided to work. And so I decided to create my own job. So I created HÁPTICA. And then in the middle of the process, where I didn't want to apply my law degree, it was impossible because a lot of the problems that I found in those services that I was working with were related to the legal touch points. So my low brain was like jumping around and telling me, you have to work with me, you have to work with me. So I decided to create a new business line inside HÁPTICA, which was related to legal service design, which was related to how can we work with those legal touch points in order to design the legal service or the legal experience is inside the service that I was working with. So that's a little bit about me.
And for anyone who doesn't know what the touch point is, can you briefly explain what that is?
Of course. Well, in any service, you have components that make possible that that service exists. So, for example, when you are going to take a bus, that experience is a service. So, when you go to the station, that station is a space, which is a touch point that makes the service of taking a bus possible. But also, when you go into the bus, that object is another touch point. And the process of buying the ticket is another touch point, the process itself. And also, if there is a driver, that person is another touch point. And the speech that that person uses to say, hello, welcome, is another touch point. And if you have to go standing up or sitting down, that process is also a touch point. And the information around the process, if they are telling you, you should stop here, or if you have, I don't know, a wearable that is telling you, you please stop here because this is your stop, that will be an amazing touch point for me, for example. So sometimes services have really good touch points, or sometimes they don't have good touch points, or have a lot of touch points that you don't need, and you are just so confused because you don't get them. And as a service designer, what you have to do is to understand from the beginning until the end, which are the moments of that service, which are the touch points that make possible that service, which touch points are working, which touch points are not working and which touch points you should create to make that service even better. And when you design those touch points, you have to prototype them with the final user in order to understand how to make it like perfect for them. So you can classify those touch points in products, objects, spaces, channels, processes. So taking that into account, you have like the job as a service designer to make like the choreography of all those touch points in every single moment of the service.
Oh, thank you for explaining, because I see that many people don't really understand what they are, and I think it's super interesting that you have been looking at these legal touch points like 10 years ago, even because many people are very blind to legal touch points in the first place.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, when we think about legal services, and then you discover the need to design them, to make them better, what are some of the common pain points and challenges that you see?
Of course. Well, how I was telling you, I began to work with services in general. So some of my first projects were connected with the finance industry, so banking and insurance, and some of them were related to the retirement services. And for example, I remember one of those projects. They asked me to design the final moment when you receive this final letter that tells you you are done working, you can retire, you have been sending money to this account every single month, so you're done, enjoy. So this seems really easy, right? But these kind of companies, they have a regulation, and taking into account your age and how many weeks you have been doing this money sending process, law applies to you. And also, I don't know how it's in your countries, but in Colombia, if you're a woman or you're a man, it is different regarding to age. And the final result of your retirement process is going to be affected by that. So when you go to this company and you say, well, I have this age, I have been sending this money during this amount of time, I'm done. So please retire myself. So I'm ready for that. And when they reply to you, they just give you a lot of legal content. Like, yeah, but they're taking into account the loan and but you're a woman, but you have been doing this and this and this, and these weeks don't apply to you because you were in a different regimen, and now this and that. And at the end, you cannot retire now. So please work 10 years more. Bye. And you're like, I don't get it. And I'm using a really plain language right now to do by doing this example. Imagine reading this like a lot of pages with law inside of every single content. So when they ask me this beautiful project to do, they don't tell me you're going to find a lot of content, legal content, and even they didn't even know that I was a lawyer when they asked me to do this project. So for me, it was really interesting. And I didn't tell you this, but when I decided to create HÁPTICA, I didn't want to be a lawyer. Like, I was already a lawyer. I have that my diploma and my diploma as a designer as well. But I wanted to work as a designer, not as a lawyer. And when I was doing this, it was impossible to ignore that I was a lawyer. Like, my law part was like, you have to read this, you have to understand this. And as a lawyer, I could understand it. But in HÁPTICA, we had to create a tool, a methodological tool to really diagnose that letter, that document, to understand if people are really connecting with the content. So what we did, we create this really simple tool. The name is Between the Lines. So what we do is we take this document and we show it to the final user. And we ask the user, can you underline in red what you don't understand the content? Can you underline in yellow what you feel should be out because it doesn't give you any real content? And can you do it in green when you feel that this is really useful? And we did this with all this content, with the final user, with people who was working on the company, and also with lawyers inside the company. It was really interesting because everybody put red on the content, even the lawyers inside the company. Why? Because, there's like a rotation inside the organizations, and someday one lawyer puts one word, and then another lawyer comes and puts another word, and then puts an extra law, and then maybe we have to protect again the company, so let's put an extra law, and the document was like this, and then and this, and who has to read this? The final user who is not a lawyer. And this is just one example. There is another who is really interesting, related to one word. Imagine this. In Colombia, when you are presenting your paperwork, you have to, this is going to be tricky with the translation, but I'm going to try. So you have to present your paperwork, and you have to add the registry of your birth, right? But you have two options. You can add the original one, or you can add one who has been notarized, right? But in Spanish, will be auténtica, which is the original, or autenticada, which is notarized. The difference is da, right? Law doesn't ask you to be the authentic. Law says could be autenticada, which is easier because could be a copy, notarized. But in the company that I was working, they decided to put auténtica. They put out the da, which make it so much difficult. Because if you are from a little town in the middle of the forest, you have to go and find the one paper that is the authentic one, and that could take you months to find that paperwork. And when I was doing this between the lines, a lot of people didn't understand the word auténtica, because even though auténtica is a simple word, like authentic, right? Original. But legally, you don't get what is the difference. And they will say, what is authentic? And I was like, it has to be the one that says that you are that person. Where am I going to find that? I was like, I don't know, maybe your mom knows, but you are 85. So is your mom alive? And then that was really hard. And when I contrast that document with the law, I identified that the law didn't ask you to be the original one. So when I took that case to the lawyers inside the company, they said, oh my God, we're doing this so much harder than should be. And the service and the experience is so much longer right now because that is not part of the content of the checklist. And when I'm talking about this story, I have like this skin thing, because
yes.
that just that is going to change the path.
Yeah, like the tiniest change in the process can have huge impact.
Exactly. I'm sorry that I'm taking so long to
No, it's great.
Your question, but I think that is a really beautiful story of how just that is going to change months of people going through a process. And right now, that switched the course of those millions of users, because that company has millions of users in Colombia. So that's how you, understanding a legal touch point, can switch one content and switch the checklist, and also create an extra column that says you can find this in this part, in this organization. You can find this in this address. You can find this in this link. You can find this asking this person. And with that, people will like, okay, I'm going to go to this address, talk to this person, call this, and then they are going to have the service to find the legal touch point that they need to go through the process. That's it.
Thank you. So perfect examples. And I love listening to you telling these stories, because that's what when I went to your website, you talked about the storytelling and I can see it in you as well, that it's a very powerful way of you to do your work through these stories.
Yeah, in Haptica, we describe Haptica as a touch point because haptics is the perception of the touch. When you talk about haptics, is how you perceive what is visual, and when you talk about acoustics, is how you perceive what is in the audio, right? And when we talk about haptics, is how we can perceive the touch points or the tactics in the stories that we live as users around the world. And what is really interesting is we are users of the world, and all around us there are services, because service is around the world. But the problem is that people are not designing their services. They are just putting them there, and the user is just going around suffering the service, not living the stories, not living the services. So there's like a lot of opportunities to design services consciously. So that's what we do in Haptica. We identify the story of the user, we identify those touch points, and we see how we can make it better.
Oh, beautiful story behind that company name. Thank you for telling that. But hey, let's look at one example of your projects that you promised to share.
Of course. So
to understand even more about your work.
Perfect. I'm going to share. I'm going to share my screen. So let me know if I can do it right now. But okay, I'm done. So are you watching my screen right now?
Yes. Yes, now it's on.
Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share one of my last projects. This is a relevant one. If some of you were connected or were part of the Legal Design Summit, you already saw this project. If you haven't, this is new for you. I'm so glad that I have the chance to share with you this content. And it's relevant and it's personal because it's related to one of my new components in life, which is I'm a woman, I'm the mother of 2 dogs, I'm a lawyer, I'm a designer, I'm the founder of a company, and I'm also recently divorced. And when I got this news, because it was like from nowhere, my husband, or my ex-husband actually, the last day of the last year, he just came and had a conversation on that room and told me, you know what? I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. I think we should just finish it. It was really hard for me to listen to that. And don't worry, I'm okay now. I can talk about these. And if some of you have been going through this kind of process, I feel you, and I know that you can feel me. And it's really hard to be part of that process, to be part of that kind of conversations. And you have no idea what is coming to you from that day. And as a person, it's really hard, but as a part of a legal society, because when you are married, you are part of a legal society, you don't know what is coming as well. And I'm a lawyer. I'm the daughter of 2 lawyers. And even though having all that legal knowledge around me, it was really hard because it has that emotional component. So remember, I'm a service designer and I'm a legal service designer. So it was impossible for me not to take into account that this should be something that should be designed as well. Not only for me, for him as well, because we don't talk really often now, but I know that it was really, really hard for him as well. So that's how this project was born. I met an amazing person. Her name is Tatiana. She was also divorced. I met her on January, like the last day of January, and like a month before that everything happened. And she gave me so much hope. She told me this happened to me like 2 years ago, and I'm okay now. So if I'm okay, I promise you, you are going to be okay. And we connected, and I decided I'm going to create a project to help people getting into a divorce process. I'm going to do it with this person. So Tatiana is like my partner in crime to design this project, and we are using all this method of the legal service design method, and we are also including in the process a new business line that we have in Háptica that is connected with gender, because it came to me, to my mind, with other projects that is not the same to design a service for a woman, for a man, or even for people who are fluid in the gender perspective. So the questions was on the table was how to redesign the divorce experience, taking into account the gender blind spots. So what we did with Tatiana using the Háptica's method was to understand the entire service or the entire experience of getting divorced. And we realized that there were like a lot of moments that were really hard to go through. But especially there was one moment, sorry that everything is in Spanish, but we are doing this in Latin America. And this moment was the agreement, which is, okay, this is no longer going through. We have to stop being married. But how we're going to do this? We have a house, or we have two dogs, or we have a table, or we have kids. How we're going to manage this? Is going to work? Is not going to work? Did you pay for the house, but I'm living in the house, but I'm paying for the water service, so that applies? So what losses? And again, I'm a lawyer, I know my rights, but that not the regular situation of everyone. So what we did here is taking into account this approach of my method, which is law is everywhere. It's around every single service. And in the middle, gender is part of every single person. So I'm a woman, and I have a particular approach to life, just being a woman. But in the middle, there is, in this case, the service of getting divorced. And the service is not taking into account this gender approach. And the service of getting divorced, what touch points includes the lawyer, who is part of that, the notary, if we are doing this using this kind of space to making the agreement, the documents are touch points as well, the spaces that we are using to make that happen. So how can we design all of that? And when I say gender, I'm going to show you some of the blind spots that we have identified inside the service that were quite interesting. And one of them is connected with Tatiana. Tatiana, how I told you, was amazing. And she had also two kids, Abby and Leticia. And she told me a really interesting story. She told me that when she had conversations with her lawyer, back then when she was beginning her divorce process, her lawyer told her, my lawyer told me that with Alejandro's infidelity, it was perfect for me to keep full custody of the girls. But was this what I wanted, like girls without a dad? And I thought that this was a really interesting blind spot. And when I talk about blind spot, it's something that we don't see as society because it's so common that we just make it regular. It's like, of course, if he as the husband was with somebody else, he shouldn't be part of the paternity process. So he should be out. We should punish him. Bye-bye that of the process. And when I talked with Tatiana about this, I asked her, how did you feel about that? And she said, of course, as a woman, I was super hurt. But as a mother, I didn't want my kids without a dad. But the lawyer was so convinced with this approach that in one moment I thought, yes, let's do this. So for me, as a researcher and as a service designer and as a lawyer, I said to me, it is possible that more lawyers are using this as a legal approach. And I did my research, and I had more interviews, and I talked with more women that were part of this kind of situation. And I realized that that was happening. There was a blind spot about, if a man acts like this, I'm going to assume that the woman doesn't want him to be part of the paternity process. So let's take him out and let's go through a really hard process of getting a divorce and taking that guy out of the story. And the blind spot was like this: custody for everyone. We have normalized that when there is an unfaithful father, the mother does not want to share custody with him, because this behavior has been seen historically. But in reality, each case must be seen in detail, and it's the job of the lawyer to know the true intentions of its client and watch over the children's interests. So in this case, it's not about he acts like this, she wants this. No. Let's have the conversation. What do you want for you, for the future of your children? How do you imagine yourself in the future? How do you imagine the relationship between you two? Because you're going to be connected for the rest of your life. And then I did a lot of research with men as well. And this is the story of Rodrigo. And he told me this story. My lawyer told me that we could assign the lease to somebody else, so that my ex-wife will not have access to the apartment during the divorce process. But if I affected Raquel, which was the ex-wife, that will affect my son, and I don't want that for my future or for our future. So then I realized it is possible that when man is the provider, lawyers will say, I want to be a really good lawyer, so I'm going to do everything for him to keep all the houses and cars and everything, because I'm going to take care of him, only him. Could be there a blind spot about the man as a provider who wants to keep everything and leave the other person alone with anything. And I did my research and I identified that a lot of men were having this kind of conversation with their lawyers. And the blind spot was this one. We have normalized that when men provide at home and the time comes for a divorce, they want to retain capital as a strategy to win, because these processes are seen as a confrontation. But in reality, this type of position damages the future healing of both parties, and it is illegal as well. So in this case, what I have seen is service, which is the middle part of the gender and the legal approach, should be something that connects the process, not disconnects the process. And that is how we in HÁPTICA, we have created this method that thinks about what kind of touch points we can design to make it better. So in this case, we have to design products and services, new processes, new communications, even connect the ecosystem to make the divorce process even better. So that's how this amazing service has been created. And the name is Kai. I didn't have the chance to explain more about this in the Legal Design Summit, but I am going to have more time here. And Kai means in Japanese, ocean. And in a divorce process, you feel that you're going to die in the middle of the water, and just a wave is coming for you and you're going to be drowned. But in Hawaiian also means reborn. And you know what? After a divorce, you're reborn, because you are a new person with a new life, with a new beginning. So I love that the word has two meanings, which are true. And Kai wants to be this guide that is going to help you through the process with 3 lines. First is a legal guidance. Second, a psychology support. And third, the support in logistics, which seems like super easy, but it's not that easy, because when you are going through this process, you don't even know where you're going to live. Because at the beginning, this house was for 2 people. And in one moment, when that person tells you, I don't want to be with you anymore, the conversation is about also who is going to stay here. So logistics matters. Should we sell the house? Should you stay at the house? Should I stay at the house? I have to buy you your part. What are you going to do about this? So as you can see here, it's about the entire ecosystem of providers and stakeholders who should be part of this and take into account how do you want to go through this process. And we also have created a guide for lawyers to stop having gender biases approaches and stop thinking that men are like this and women are like this, and have like profound and really deep conversations with them. And to make that happen, we have created like this format or canvas to ask the right questions about the emotions, about the kids, about the finances, about where you're going to live. And examples of these questions could be, how do you want the other person to get involved in the future of the children? Or how do you manage your life after the divorce? And having all these components can give you the final formula of the process, which is, in this case, for example, Angélica is looking to, and financially she hopes to, she expects to live in, and finally to resolve this. And having that on the table as a lawyer, you can design the plan, but you cannot like imagine what you want without having the right conversation with your client. And as you can see, this has this line here because it should be, and it will be awesome to have this format for one person and the other one as well, and connect the intention of both parties in order to connect them and make it a really emotional and real process between two parties. And what we did with this, with the final component, was to prototype it and show it to real users, which have been going through a divorce. Rodrigo, Pilar, and Claudia, they have been part of my research. And for example, Rodrigo told me, it will help to overcome the pain and navigate difficult conversations. And for example, Pilar said this guidance is super duper. It has everything. Where can I pay you right now? She told me one day. And it's been just awesome to see that we need to create these kind of services with legal touch points, but also emotional touch points and support touch points to make it happen. At the end, what we want to do is make the connections between the service, the law, and the gender, taking into account every single component that you need in this. And the final, like methodologically consequence here is service design is the bridge that connects the law and the gender needs of the final user. So this was the project that I wanted to share with you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so amazing. And I see also in the chat people are so, it's so, I don't know, so powerful and so important discussion and so important discoveries that you have made, and that you have actually taken action to really try to improve these gender biases. Is Kai already in use? Do you have already some results or impact on it from the users?
Yeah, we are working right now with 2 clients. We are going to a prototype with really, like right now, I am the assistant of one of the users and Tatiana is the assistant of the other user. And with the final results, we are just going alive because it's a really serious process. And we want them to be like really like perfect when it's already working and everything. But it's beautiful to see how the users know that this is like the first prototype. And I'm really glad that they have found that we understood the needs in the process. We have a male and a woman, which is awesome as well. And I have to be honest with you, at the beginning, I didn't want to work with men. I thought they were bad because I was super mad. But then I realized that it's not about the gender, it's about going through a process that is really hard. And they also need support. And I found out a lot of blind spots for them as well. And this service needs to be part of that. For example, some of them, their families, they said, oh, of course, you don't want to be married with your wife because you have somebody else. Like, no, it's just I stopped loving her. But you want to be with somebody else, not now, but someday. So just be with somebody else. Keep married and be with somebody else. And it's like, no, I just don't want to be with her. So how can we like be with those men and help them go through that process and have like emotional and responsible conversations? Because if that is the support system that they have, a lot of families are going to get hurt. So we need to be there for those families.
For sure. And as someone who I have also divorced, it was a long time ago, more than 10 years ago, but it's a tough process. So and exactly as you say, that even as a lawyer, you're like, I don't know how this works. I'm not a divorce lawyer. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's really hard. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Hey, let's go back to you. I want to hear more about your own experience combining lawyering and design. I know that you don't work as a lawyer anymore, but you still work in law. And I before we started, you also told me that you are teaching in a law school. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. Well, I didn't know that I want to be a teacher, but as you know, in the design process, there is a lot of workshopping, and you have to work a lot with communities and co-creation processes. So it came to me so naturally to create an academic process, an academic product in HÁPTICA to teach companies about legal design. So I already had like the contents, and one day, one of my favorite teachers in process, which is the litigation approach in law school, she called me one day, and actually I was like her, I don't know how to say that in English, like her fellow when I was going to as a student, as a law student. And she called me and said, "Hey, Angelica, I know that you are doing well with HÁPTICA and everything. I would love to have you in my university, and I would love to have you teaching." And I thought that she wanted me to teach like litigation or something like that. I was like, that's not a good idea. That is so irresponsible. Let's not do that. And she said, no. I want you to teach what you do. And she gave me like the most beautiful opportunity, which was teach what you want to teach, what you feel that the students need. What is that? And I think that's the dream of every teacher. So I said, I want them to understand that what they are going to do after school is a service, because lawyers, they deliver a service. And that service could be designed, and there are different kind of users, and we can create like a chameleon service, and we can, as service providers, design ourselves as well, how we speak, how we dress, how we behave. And that's the class. And when I did the pitch, and she said, I have no idea what you're saying, but I think it's so interesting, so let's do that. So I created the class. The class in Spanish is Diseño de Servicios Legales, and English will be Legal Service Design. And we have 4 challenges. The first one is with law firms, and I found real law firms, baby ones, middle ones, huge ones, and they came to me with real challenges that are connected with documents. So I have in mind all the time touch points. So the first challenge is with the document as a touch point. So a legal concept, an NDA, a contract, any kind of document that they create for the user. And the groups of students, they receive the challenge with the document, and they have to go through the entire process. So they have to go and use the between the line tools that I already explained in the first project that I explained, and they identify all these insights, and they do a lot of interviews, and they do a co-creation session, and they create a prototype, and they present the final project to the law firm, which is awesome, because when I do the research of the law firms, I also find like law firms that are really willing to use the final product and make it happen. And I want these students to have like a portfolio at the end, to feel I have a project that is already applied in a real law firm, and also make connections. And for me, one of our really great KPI is for them to have like a job at the end of the class. And I already accomplished that in this semester. One of my students is working already with the law firm that she had as a client. So it's awesome. Because some of them are really scared to find like the right fit. And when I find these kind of law firms which are like really open to this kind of method, and they find the right fit. And also I do like a survey at the beginning to see if they like family law or public law, and the law firm that I make the match is in that field. So it's like, I'm going to work with somebody that works in the field that I love. So they make the connection. So that's the first challenge. The second challenge is with processes, like operation approach. And I work with companies and the legal area of the company. In this case, in this semester, I have 2 public entities and the law and the law areas in the public entity, and I have 2 private companies. One is a restaurant chain, which is quite interesting, and sport company, and 2 public entities. And the same, they have to understand the entire process, which are the bottlenecks, and what kind of new touch point they can create to make it easier and so much smoother. And they have on Friday the final result. Let's see what's going to happen. The third project is related to people. So we're going to work only with public entities, and they have to identify what is to work in a public entity as a person. What could be your challenge? How you should be designed to work in a public entity, especially in Colombia, in a Latin country, when the resources are so limited and it's really hard to work on that. And they have to redesign the person and redesign the space where she works or where he works. And that's quite awesome. They do like renders of a space, and I love it. And the final challenge is a free challenge. And I want them to create their own company using all the tools and all the touch points. And it's amazing. They do things that are beautiful. And actually, it's a class that doesn't have like a lot of credits, but I tell them, you put the credits. Like, all of you are going to have like an amazing grade. I don't care, but they just work like if it's the final class of the career, because they know that they are just learning and they are just connecting with the ecosystem. So that's the class.
That's so important, and it gives so much hope, because then as lawyers, when they enter the profession and graduate from law school, then they will have all these new skills, and they can continue working as a lawyer, but still have this ability to really understand the user and their clients and solve their problems in a meaningful way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. And I feel that in law school, you don't feel the real connection with the real world until the end when you do your practice. And I know why, because you are dealing with real stuff. But I think that as teachers, we need to work a lot with the real world and try to bring that real world to the classroom. And when I was designing the program, I thought a lot about that. So how can I bring the real stuff here? And that's how they are connecting with the content, I think.
Yes, solving real world problems.
Exactly.
We are running out of time, but I'd like to end this by asking, what are you currently working on?
Okay, So right now we have quite interesting projects. We're working with a public entity that is in charge of the registration of the companies in Colombia. So when you are creating your own company, you have to go to this Cámara de Comercio, the Chamber of Commerce, and that entity has the process and is quite rudimentary. So we are redesigning all the process digitally and emotionally, and we are redesigning that, and we are taking into account gender as well, because all the communication is el empresario. In Spanish, we use a lot of gender. El empresario will be men, la empresaria will be women, and all the content is in male perspective. Like, I cannot be an empresaria. So we're going to switch that in all the forms for everyone to be part of that. And so I'm so glad. And I have another project, which is a legal tech, and it's almost done. So I cannot talk a lot about that, but we are cooking our own legal tech, that is going to help us a lot in the diagnosis of our documents at the beginning of the projects and at the end. So that's what we are doing right now.
Oh, so exciting. So let's definitely keep us posted about these new projects, and where can people find more about you and your work and about Háptica as well?
Of course. Well, you can find us in our website, which is háptica.co, from Colombia, so CO. And if you want to talk to me on LinkedIn, it's really easy to find me, which is Flechas Angélica. So there I am. There's no other Flechas Angélica, lawyer and designer. And so let's keep connected. I just love talking about this. And thank you very much for having me. It was lovely to have this conversation, to share my thoughts, to share my projects. And I'm just the face, but there are like a lot of lawyers and a lot of designers inside my company that are working all the time in these beautiful projects. Nicolás, Sofia, Juan Pablo, Maria Fernanda, Ana, which are awesome. And without them, I wouldn't be here. So thank you very much, all of you, to be part of my dream, to be part of my project. And to all of you legal design passionates, thank you for following your dream. Without you, there wouldn't be a market. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Angélica, so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts and your work. It's so beautiful and it's so important. You are really changing the world. But hey, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.